You gave your last savings to a stranger? What a fool. Mia, a kind-hearted young woman, gave her last $1,000 of savings to a struggling veteran who needed it most. When her parents discovered what she had done, the consequences were swift. Just 30 minutes later, the rumble of army vehicles echoed down the street, and then someone arrived. Someone who would change Mia's life in ways she never expected. Hi everyone, welcome back to Unveiled Narratives. Today, I have another heartfelt story to share with you. Mia moved carefully through the store, her eyes scanning the shelves with focus. Every item mattered, each choice had to be right. This wasn't just shopping, it was the start of a dream she had worked hard to reach. After months of saving, planning, and borrowing from her parents, she was finally buying supplies to launch her small coffee and pastry cart. It wasn't a fancy cafe or a big storefront, but it was hers. Something she could push through busy streets, setting up in parks, near office buildings, and outside train stations. She had mapped out everything: the high-traffic areas, the best hours, the perfect menu. The recipes were perfected. The permits were ready. Now all she needed were the ingredients and supplies, and she had exactly $1,000 to do it. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. This business wasn't just about passion. Mia was a college student balancing classes and part-time jobs, trying to ease the weight of tuition and daily expenses. Her parents had helped where they could, but money had always been tight. Her father worked long hours on construction sites, and her mother picked up shifts as a cashier at a small store. Some months were harder than others, and Mia knew they worried about her future. She had always loved baking. Ever since she was a child, watching her mother roll out dough in their tiny kitchen. Friends would tell her she had a talent. Her pastries always had the perfect balance of sweetness and warmth. Now, she hoped that talent could turn into something real, something that could help her get through college and maybe take some financial pressure off her family. She checked the list in her hand, making sure she stayed within her budget. A bulk bag of espresso beans, one of the biggest expenses but non-negotiable. Flour, sugar, butter, and yeast, all in large quantities, enough to last several weeks. She added specialty baking chocolate, vanilla extract, and assorted nuts, costly but essential for her pastries. In the dairy section, she picked up multiple gallons of milk and cream for the lattes and cappuccinos she planned to serve. Then came the essentials: disposable coffee cups, lids, sleeves, and filters. She had to be smart. Every dollar counted. Mia glanced at her cart. $980 so far. She was cutting it close, but she had just enough. Only one thing left: wax paper. With that, her shopping for supplies would be complete. She pushed her cart toward the aisle near the pharmacy counter, searching for wax paper to wrap her pastries. As she scanned the shelves, a low, steady voice caught her attention. Near the pharmacy counter, an elderly man stood at the register, his voice calm but firm. He wore a faded military cap, the embroidered insignia slightly worn but still recognizable. His posture was straight, disciplined, but his face, lined with age and exhaustion, carried the weight of something heavier. "You're saying this is after insurance?" he asked, his tone steady but laced with quiet frustration. The pharmacist, a young woman in a crisp white coat, gave him an apologetic look. "Yes, sir. Your insurance covered part of it, but the remaining balance is $1,200. The elderly man let out a slow breath, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't have that kind of money. Not right now." He pulled out his wallet, fingers sifting through the worn bills inside. After a moment, he placed $200 on the counter. "This is all I've got. Is there anything you can do?" The pharmacist shook her head. "I wish I could help, but the price is set by the manufacturer. This is the lowest it goes after insurance." Mia stood a few feet away, pretending to check a shelf, but she wasn't really looking at the labels. The murmur of their conversation drifted to her, low and unnoticed by everyone else. The store carried on as usual. Cash registers beeped, shopping carts rattled against the tile floor, and customers moved about, too preoccupied to notice the quiet struggle unfolding at the counter. The elderly man exhaled, pressing his lips together. He hesitated before tucking the cash back into his wallet. His hands, rough and veined with age, gripped the edge of his jacket for a moment before he finally stepped back. "I need this medicine," he said, more to himself than anyone else. His voice was quieter now, diabetes and a few other things. He let out a dry chuckle, but there was no humor in it. 25 years serving this country, fighting so others wouldn't have to. His voice wavered slightly. Never thought it would be this hard just to get what I need. The pharmacist opened her mouth slightly, as if to say something, but no words came. She only watched as he turned away. Mia watched too. His shoulders seemed just a little heavier now, his gaze flickering downward, his fingers briefly clenching before he released a slow breath. People nearby glanced over, some hearing his words, others noticing the tension in the air, but their gazes quickly shifted away. No one moved. No one stepped forward. But Mia did. Without overthinking, she stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir," she said. The elderly veteran turned, surprised. His tired but sharp eyes met hers. Mia hesitated. I heard what you said about the medicine." She shifted on her feet, trying to find the right words. "How much more do you need?" He studied her for a moment, as if trying to gauge why she was asking. Then, after a pause, he answered, $1,000. Mia exhaled slowly. "That's a lot." He gave a small, knowing smile, not one of amusement, but of acceptance. "Yeah, but medicine isn't really a choice." Another pause, then after a moment he added, "I had savings, a pension." He shrugged slightly. "But life happens. My wife." He stopped just for a beat, then exhaled. "Her treatments took most of it. You take care of the people you love first." His voice remained even, but there was a quiet weight behind those words, not an explanation, not a plea, just a simple truth. Mia's grip tightened on her cart. She looked at the elderly veteran, really looked at him, not just as an old man struggling to afford medicine, but as someone who had given everything for others and was left to figure it out alone. She glanced at the items in her cart. The bulk espresso bag, the flour, the cups, the wax, the exact $1,000 she had saved to start her coffee cart. Her stomach knotted. She made her decision. Mia took a slow breath, then looked up at the veteran. "Can you wait here for just a minute?" He furrowed his brow, but nodded. Sure." She turned and walked briskly toward the shelves. The weight of her decision settled in her chest, but she didn't hesitate. One by one, she placed the items back where they belonged. The large bag of espresso beans, the flour, the cups, everything she had carefully picked for her business. Near the checkout, a cashier glanced up from behind the counter. "Changed your mind?" he asked casually. Mia didn't answer. She simply placed the last item back, her hands steady. The veteran was still standing where she had left him, shifting slightly, as if debating whether to stay or go. Mia approached him without hesitation. She reached into her purse and pulled out 10 crisp $100 bills. Without a word, she extended them toward him. "What?" He blinked, as if trying to make sense of what she was offering. "Please, take it," Mia said softly. "It's yours. You can buy your medicine now." The veteran hesitated, his gaze shifting between the money and her face. "Miss, I can't accept this. That's too much." Mia swallowed, her voice steady but full of emotion. "You served this country. You gave so much for people you didn't even know. This is the least I can do for you." His fingers twitched, as if fighting the urge to reach for it. "But you don't even know me. Why would you do this?" She smiled, though her eyes were glassy with unshed tears. "Because you need this more than I do." Still, he resisted. "But this money, it's not just extra cash you had lying around, is it?" His sharp, tired eyes searched hers. "What was it for?" Mia hesitated for a moment before answering. I was saving to start a small coffee cart, my own business, something I've dreamed about for a long time. His jaw tightened. And you're giving it up for me? It's just money, she said simply. Your health is more important. You can't live without your medicine. I can start over. For a long moment he didn't move. Then, slowly, his hands trembled as he reached out and took the money. His grip tightened around it, his knuckles pale. He let out a shaky breath. I don't know what to say, he whispered. No one's ever done something like this for me. Mia blinked back the sting in her eyes. Then just promise me one thing. Take care of yourself. The veteran nodded, his throat bobbing as he tried to swallow the emotion rising in him. Then, with unsteady fingers, he pulled an old phone from his pocket, the edges worn from years of use. Miss, I don't know if I'll ever meet someone like you again. I want to remember this moment. I want to remember the angel who helped me when no one else did. He lifted the phone slightly. Would it be all right if I took a photo? Mia felt her face warm, but nodded. Of course. He took a photo, his eyes still glistening with tears. For a second he just stared at the screen as if trying to etch the moment into memory. Then, with a quiet chuckle, he murmured, I want to share this with my friends. People need to see kindness still exists. Mia said nothing, only offering a small smile. She hadn't done this for recognition, only because it was right. After a moment, the veteran looked at her with sincerity. Miss, I don't know when, but I promise I'll find a way to return this money to you. You gave up your hard-earned savings for me. It doesn't feel right to just take it and disappear. Mia shook her head gently. You don't have to do that. Just focus on getting better. But he insisted, his voice steadier. Now, please, at least let me know where I can find you. If life ever gives me a chance to repay this, I want to make sure I do. Moved by his gratitude, she hesitated for a moment before saying, I live near Greenridge Avenue, just a few blocks from here. A grateful smile formed on his lips. He nodded, as if committing it to memory. Then looked at her once more. And your name? He asked gently. Mia hesitated briefly before answering, Mia Taylor. The veteran nodded, holding on to her words as if they meant more than she could understand. Then, with one last grateful look, he whispered, Thank you, Mia. I won't forget this. As she watched him walk back toward the pharmacy, her heart felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. She had lost something, but somehow it didn't feel like a loss at all. What she didn't realize was that this act of kindness was about to change her life in ways she never expected. Still, as she stood there, the reality of what she had given up slowly settled in. This was supposed to be the day she finally bought the supplies to start her business. She had waited and saved for months, planning each purchase carefully, but now her hands were empty. No bags, no materials, just the weight of her own choice pressing on her. She didn't regret it, not truly. The veteran needed it more than she did. But as she neared home, a tightness crept into her chest. What would she tell her parents? They had sacrificed so much for her. Her father spent long hours at the construction site, coming home with aching joints and dust-streaked clothes. Her mother stood behind a cashier's counter all day, stretching every dollar to keep the family afloat. And when Mia had asked for help to start her business, they had given what little they could, trusting her to be responsible. Now she had nothing to show for it. Her stomach tightened. She couldn't ask them for more, not after this. But what would she say when they asked about the supplies? Her mother would notice immediately. There would be questions, frustration, maybe even anger. She exhaled slowly, gripping the strap of her bag. There was no way around it now. She had to face them. With a deep breath, Mia made her way home, each step heavier than the last. She stepped inside, the quiet hum of the house making her chest tighten. She had expected this moment, prepared herself for the questions, but now that she was here, the weight of it felt heavier. From the kitchen, her mother glanced up and immediately frowned. "Where are the supplies?" Her father, sitting at the table, tired from work, looked up as well, his gaze lingering on her empty hands. "Mia, what's wrong?" She hesitated. The words felt impossible to say, but there was no avoiding it. "I gave the money to someone who needed it." A silence stretched between them. Her mother's expression tightened. "What do you mean, you gave it away?" Mia swallowed. "There was a veteran outside the pharmacy. He needed money for medicine." Her father let out a slow breath, rubbing his face. "Mia, tell me you're joking." Her mother's voice sharpened. "You've been saving for months. We helped you, and you just gave it away to a stranger?" Her father leaned forward, his voice firm. "Did you see a prescription? Did you see him buy the medicine?" Mia opened her mouth, but before she could answer, he scoffed. "You don't even know if he really needed it. Mia, you think people don't make up stories? He probably saw you coming and played you for a fool." Her mother sighed, rubbing her temples. "Mia, that money wasn't just yours, it was ours too. We worked hard for it." But Mia stood firm. "It wasn't a scam. I saw him struggling, Dad. He didn't even ask me. I just knew he needed help." Her father let out a dry chuckle, shaking his head. "Yeah, and I bet he's laughing right now, counting your money. Tell me, Mia, what did you get in return for being so trusting?" A lump formed in her throat. She had no answer. Their words weighed heavily on her chest, tightened with each beat of her heart. They didn't understand, couldn't see what she had seen in the veteran's eyes, the desperation, the quiet plea beneath his pride. Blinking back tears, she swallowed the ache rising in her throat. She looked at them, wishing they understood. Then, a low, deep rumble came from outside, a vibration rolling through the floor. Maya's father frowned. What was that? Her mother turned toward the window, brow furrowed. The sound grew louder. Engines, multiple tires crunching against pavement, vehicles slowing. The house almost hummed with the force of it. Mia swallowed, stepping toward the door as shadows flickered against the curtains. The streetlights cast long silhouettes, tall, sharp, disciplined. Outside, military vehicles lined the street, dark SUVs and armored transports parked in perfect formation. Soldiers stepped out in crisp uniforms, boots striking pavement in unison, their eyes fixed straight ahead on Mia's house. At the center stood a man who needed no words to command attention. Army General Ethan Caldwell. His uniform, adorned with medals that glinted faintly, carried the weight of countless battles. 4 silver stars gleamed on his shoulders. Inside, the air grew still. Mia's parents exchanged uneasy glances. Her father stepped closer to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see the line of soldiers outside. "Why are they here?" he muttered. Her mother clutched the edge of the table, eyes fixed on the door. They saw them approaching, their steps steady, deliberate. Her mother clutched her arm. "Why are they coming here?" Her voice wavered, half-whispered. The footsteps stopped at the porch, then a firm knock. The door creaked open. Mia froze as an army general stepped inside. His uniform was crisp, his eyes sharp yet kind. The air felt still. "Mia Taylor?" he said, his voice firm but warm. "I came to thank you on behalf of countless veterans and their families." Mia's parents exchanged glances. Her father shifted awkwardly. "For what?" Mia asked, her voice soft. The general stepped forward, his boots creaking on the wooden floor. "The veteran you helped shared your story online. He wanted the world to know about the young woman who gave her savings to help a stranger." Mia's heart skipped a beat. How did you find out?" The general smiled faintly. "His post reached thousands, including many of our soldiers. Your kindness reminded them they're not forgotten." Reaching into his coat, he pulled out a phone and offered it to her. "Here, see for yourself." Mia took the phone. On the screen was a photo of her. It was the picture the veteran had taken inside the store, the one she hadn't realized he'd shared. But he had, posting it as a heartfelt gesture of gratitude, along with a caption that now stirred something deep within her. Her eyes drifted to the caption beneath the photo, the words that seemed to hold a weight of their own. And as she began to read, her breath hitched. She gave me the money she'd been saving for herself, without hesitation. In a world that often looks away, she reminded me that kindness still exists. Mia's eyes blurred as she read. The post continued. Her small act of compassion gave me more than just medicine. It gave me hope. To the young woman who chose to help a stranger, you may not know the impact of what you did, but you've touched more lives than you'll ever realize. Tears welled in Mia's eyes. She clutched the phone, emotions swelling in her chest. Her father stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. Beside him, her mother blinked back tears, pride shining through her gaze. The general nodded. You've shown that even a small act of kindness can change a life. Now we have the honor of giving something back. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a civilian medal of honor, gleaming against dark fabric, for compassion beyond duty. Maya gasped softly as he placed the medal in her hand. Its weight felt both real and symbolic. Before she could speak, the general reached into his coat again, this time holding out a sealed white envelope. And this, he said with a gentle smile, is a token of gratitude from those you've touched. Mia opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a certificate granting her a full college scholarship, along with a check to help her start her coffee business. Her breath caught as she realized what it meant. No more worrying about tuition, no more waiting to chase her dream. The veterans you inspired wanted to thank you, the general said softly. They came together to make this possible. Maya clutched the envelope to her chest as tears filled her eyes. The kindness she had given had returned in a way she never imagined. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You've already said it with your actions. The general stepped back and nodded to her parents. You've raised a daughter with a heart that changes lives. Her father's smile, usually so reserved, broke through with pride. Her mother pulled Mia into a tight hug, their tears mixing, this time tears of joy. The general turned to leave, pausing at the door with a gentle smile. He looked back at Mia. Kindness reaches farther than we realize. Never forget that. Then he stepped outside, the soldiers standing at attention as the door closed softly behind him. Silence settled over the room, but the general's words lingered in the air. Mia clutched the medal tightly, its cool surface grounding her against the whirlwind of emotions inside. Disbelief, gratitude, and something deeper, a sense of purpose filled her heart. Her father stepped beside her, his eyes glassy yet proud, placing a hand on her shoulder. He cleared his throat. Mia, I was wrong to doubt you. What you did, it mattered more than I could have imagined. Her mother wrapped her arms around Mia, pulling her close. We're so proud of the woman you've become. Mia's chest tightened, tears welling up as she returned her mother's embrace. The weight of their words melted away the doubt that had lingered in her heart. Months passed, and life began to unfold in ways Mia had only dreamed of. Her coffee cart, painted warm cream with golden lettering, stood on a busy street corner, surrounded by smiling customers. The air carried the rich aroma of coffee and pastries as Mia handed steaming cups to familiar faces. Veterans who had supported her, neighbors who had become regulars, and strangers whose smiles warmed her heart. With her education funded, she could finally ease her family's burdens, helping with bills, treating her parents to dinners, and repaying the kindness they had shown her. Each day, as she worked beneath the open sky, the framed medal resting beside her cash register served as a reminder of how far a single act of kindness could go. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. Share this video with your loved ones. It might brighten their day or give them a new perspective. And before you go, check out the video on your screen. It's another heartfelt story you won't want to miss.